at the edges there where it starts to go into the vegetation, I can put in some of these warmer sort of in shadow, but warmer colours. And I'm just using the side of the stick there, and you can see I'm making those sort of grass stick-like marks by just banging it around, sometimes on the side like that, but then up like so. And that's how I'm going to make the vegetation. And I'm just not going to just use the brown, but I am going to use some of it on each side like so. And bring it in into the over the path there. So that's going to be the vegetation. I've got, what I want to do next is start up here and work my way down to the foreground, but I just wanted to put that in to remind me that that's all in shadow. And I will be putting a few, you know, brighter spots here and there amongst the shadowed stuff, as it might slip out into the odd spot of sunshine, and that will give us the balance between light and shade. I want to put in here and here the vegetation now. So I'll be starting on that, and we'll start with some lighter colours around the edges there, where I want it to be in sunshine, mostly around the edges. We'll do that both sides. So I'm putting in this orangey sort of colour, which isn't the colour of any of the vegetation that I've got in my reference photo, but I liked it and I wanted to use it in here as well, so I'm using it in that way to unify it. I've left quite a bit of the purple showing through because that is going to help establish some shadows in there, and when you look at it already you can see that this is a really sunlit area, so I'm not just going to put that colour in, I'm going to put a whole heap of different colours through there. Now this is where I want to horrify some of you who think these are, you know, these are very expensive pastels. Why am I going to do this? I'm just snapping it in half. Why? Because this is a colour I'm never really going to use in huge swathes. I'm only going to use small amounts of it. It's very helpful when I'm doing the grasses here, just to have small amounts of it. And it's hard to get when you've got a flat stick, and I love using the sides of my pastels. Also, it's made a very, very sharp bit there, so if I wanted to put a couple of sharp marks, you can see what I mean down here. I've just made it so much easier to do that by snapping it there. So when I get my boxes of pastels, first thing I do is not get precious about snapping them. It's just like having your paintbrushes, you need a whole different size range of them, and so let's just not get worried about it. So I've snapped that one. This is not a very old box, and I've already got two that I've snapped in half, and that's a good thing. Now up in here there will still be some other different colours. I've got very orangey yellow, so I'm just going to put a little touch of, a few touches of green in there. Again, this is not a colour I would use too much of, but it's just because there will be some greener spots amongst those grasses. So I'm just putting those in now, down around the if you just use the side of it and sort of run it down like that, it kind of simulates those little threads of vegetation that come out on and run sort of along paths as you go towards the beach. So I'm just putting a few of those in. This time I'll actually eventually make quite a lot darker because around the shadowed areas, but for the moment I'm just putting in this. So don't get too tight with your paintings, just develop them without trying to cover every bit of paper with the colours that you're using. let there be a little bit of imagination. Let the viewer look at it and mix the background colour with other colours that are there, and have an impression of the scene that you're trying to work on. You don't want to have everything spelled out for your viewer. Let them bring their interpretation to your painting as well. It's different, of course, if you want to do a photorealistic painting, but I rarely do those. Mostly I'm doing these looser sort of paintings, which are very much more expressive. Now in here you can see that's where all the sunlight's coming across, so I'm going to keep this again fairly light and bright here. I'm putting in a few darker browns there, but that's okay, you'll find those even in the areas that are in sunshine. So I want to put those in just for a little bit of variation even in the sunny patch, and I can lay some of those colours in over those little areas there too, to make it more interesting. And they can be little flower, coloured bits of flowers on the vegetation as it comes down here. Okay, so I'm just laying in more and more there. You can add in at this stage, if you want to show that there's some sand amongst that vegetation, you can lay in a little bit of the sand colours amongst that too, so just gives a little indication of sand in amongst there, especially in those bits there in the shadow, and just taking it and running it on flat, and it will blend in a bit of the colours from your grasses, but that's okay. So I've put in that lighter colour I was using, and now I'm just going to put a little bit of the white in there, just to give a sense of the sand being in amongst that shrubbery. So I've got a little bit of that going there. I'm going to go back in again now with some of those kind of colours, and I'll cover up some of that sand I've put in. That's okay. I'm snapping this one as well. You'll notice when I snap, I really don't get lots of pastel going everywhere. You're not wasting the pastel. It's a very clean snap, and the Snellies will snap very easily, so you don't need to worry about cutting them. It's just take them and break them. So these are the flatter sort of grasses out here that grow along the shore. As I get further back from the sand dunes itself, the beach itself, I'll have more bigger grasses, taller grasses, and so I can work those a bit as well. But I've got some nice warm colours against that sea going on now. I'll be putting in some darker colours in these shadowed areas now. So I've got some darker greens that are going to go in, and I'm trying to be careful where I put them so that they match up with these shadowed areas on the path. The shadows we're getting are from where the sunlight's coming through trees, so there will be gaps where there still will be sunlight. So just putting in some of the darker areas. I'm going to make this quite dark here, because I'm going to have that tree coming up there, and there'll be a lot of shade from the tree as it goes across the path there. So putting in some darker colours. I've got greens. I'm going to put in some warmer greens. So that was a cool green. Now I'm putting in some warmer greens, so a more yellowy green rather than a bluey green. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about warm and cool in colours. Is it heading more towards warm colours like reds and yellows, or is it heading more towards generally cooler colours like blues and greens? So I'm just dotting around here a few of the deeper colours for a little spots of shadow there. And you can see now that you've got a real shadowed area and a light area. So it doesn't just have to be cool colours in there. We can have, and it doesn't just have to be greens. I've got a purple here I'm putting bits of in as well. That adds another layer of interest. Here we go. And I can start building up some bigger shrubs if I like now too, as we come back. So I can add in some bigger grasses and shrubs here. Some darker colours. Here I'm just making that quite a big grass there. I'll add in some more behind here. Now it doesn't all have to be big grasses. So I'll just vary that up a bit and I'll put in some greens. Again, those more muted greens in the shadows. And I'll remember that I've got some light patches here, so in some of these areas I'm going to make those a bit lighter. So I'll take this back again and add in some of these more brighter, vibrant colours here. In this more sunlit area. And see, for this one I'm just making out what this shrub looks like. It's got some green base and then it's got these orange kind of jabs on it, which are more like some sort of flower seed poddy thing going on. Doesn't really matter what it is. And this is the side facing the sun, so that's brighter. I'm going to add in a few more brighter, even brighter bits there. You can see I'm just dabbing it on. And now you can see these Sennelias are very soft, and if you jab too hard you're going to lose a lot of your pastel, so I try not to jab too hard. And I will actually also make a couple of even... And within the Sennelias themselves, some different colours have different sort of softness. This one, for example, is much harder one than that, so you'll get to know them as you use them. So it's harder to jab this on, making highlights of colours, because it's quite a bit harder. So in fact I'm going to go and find a different colour. This is a cooler sort of green, but nevertheless it gives me some spots of light on there in the sun, and you can see immediately that that's in the sunshine there. And I might add a few of lighter colours down here on these grasses in the foreground as well. And here again, just down here, just want to lighten it up so that we can see that the sun is sparkling on it. Just next to that area. And I can add some back into there, into the areas where the sun's really shining. So not to forget, while I'm doing this, that the sun is actually coming from a particular direction. It's shining this way, and so my shadows are coming across the path like that. And so even though this is in the sunlight, that side is going to be brighter, that side is going to be darker, and that in the middle, to make it a rounded form, is going to be somewhere in between. So I can actually put on this one, if I want to, some even darker bits down back on the shadowed side there. And that helps you get really well rounded forms and shrubs. Okay, so you can really see that sunshine falling on those areas there. I'm going to take a bit of that sunshine and just add it up here as well. And a few little pockets here and there amongst them. Okay, so I like that sensation of shadow and sunshine that I've produced there. Now if you feel it's too cool, it's quite a limey sort of green there. I can always warm it up again with one of my other less cool colours and just put a few dots of those amongst it. They're still sort of sunlit colours, so I can get too carried away and then lose the freshness of it, so I'm trying not to do that. Just be guided by trying to keep it fresh. And not cover up all the paper underneath. So this is all going to be fairly well in shadow, and there'll probably be a few tips that are coming out into the sunshine. So what I want to do now is put that tree in that I was going to do. Now when it comes to the tree, I can now think about using my charcoal pencil again just to draw in some vague guidelines about how that tree might go. And the charcoal pencil is quite good for just putting in these very tiny branches and twigs here, so putting a few of those in. But I'm actually not really looking at the tree there too much, the photo that I've got, because I'll go mad trying to put in all those, but I want to kind of get some sense of the wind-swept curves of the trees down by the beach, where they sort of get swept by the wind and pushed in all sorts of directions. And I'm doing that thing where you take it out to the very edge of your paper to give it more interest. You don't want it to stopping short of the edge of your painting, or it doesn't quite look real. Here I'm just putting lots of those little strokes in for the little branches. A lot coming up like that. So just gently twisting my pencil round, my charcoal pencil. Bring it down, and then it thickens up as it comes down into this area here. And just another one coming up through there. These are a typical tree on the Australian coast. It's a she oak, they're called, and they have sort of a droopy down structure of branches. So I've sort of got a twisting conglomerate in there of the tree branches, and it gives me a nice silhouette against the sky. And I can then go ahead and put in the trunks a bit more there, and the trunks are going to have combinations of sort of some browns, some dark colours, some lighter colours. So I'm just going to start off with a sort of a few strokes coming down like so to suggest the trunk, and then I'm going to add in more as I go. So at the very base it's going to be quite dark, and I'm actually going to use here a sort of blue colour, a deep blue, phthalo-y kind of blue, to suggest the darkness. I'm not using a black. I use the dark charcoal pencil to sketch it in, but I'm not going to use a black anywhere on that trunk. Well, having said that, I might use this black just for a couple of touches at the base, and just the odd touch on the non-sunlit side, but really not very much at all. So I've put in a few bits of very dark there, and that'll be the darkest part of my painting really. And then I'll just continue to use some of these, a couple of the warmer colours as well, for a few spots where the sun is catching it, and I'm going to put in some very light greys, purpley colours there too. So actually this is quite a good one. This is a sort of a very cool light colour. I'll slip a little bit of that in here and there where there might be bit of sunshine catching the edge of it, so it's not all black and dark. I need to put some vegetation, some of the leaves up there. The she oak leaves grow in these downward sort of strokes like so. So I'm just going to go through, try not to cover up all of those branches that I've made. And then in here I'm just going to make a conglomeration of it by just stroking quite a lot. Don't really need to delineate much. Some of these will be like that too, just the side of the pastel, making the marks there. I can always go back in and put it with my charcoal pencil and put some more of those branches in if I want to. So that's the start of it. I really need to put in some very deep colours, dark colours there, and they won't just be greens because they have a warmness about them. These they sort of have sienna colours in them and so on. So I'm just putting some of those in with the browns, and then I've got some deeper greens that are going to go in over the top. And I'm making some individual strokes there. It's still not dark enough, and I've got a few choices here. I'm just seeing what my dark colour is up the back here. Ooh, that's very dark. I'm actually going to use that to do a little bit of work down here. And a couple of little touches along the edge of it there. But I need that foliage to be much deeper and darker, so I'm actually going to go in there with some very deep dark green. Yeah, that's it. And just make these covered up a lot of that sky there, and I'm not sure I wanted to cover that much up, but sometimes that you just have to go back in and re-establish that afterwards. It's harder when I've done that kind of background strokey stuff, so I'm not sure I'll actually do too much of that. And what I might do to re-establish is just put in some more of these smaller branches so that we get a sense of the sky coming in behind it, and show a few of them through the little stripes I've got left. I'm still not happy that that's dark enough, and I might put in some of this darker blue. And dark brown, red brown. Again, snapping that one because I don't want it to be quite that way. And try to remember again that the light's coming from that side, so it's going to be darker over this side of the tree. So now I've got my tree there, and this is going to be the shadow from the tree. And so what I want to do is, I think my shadow should be, I've put the tree in there and the shadow should be coming across there more, so I might make my path a little bit less than shadow there, and less than shadow there, And I'll just use some of that white I used before to help knock that back as well. And now I'm just going to reinstate some of those shadows which are going to go from the trunks there. So there's one trunk, there'll be another trunk going across here, adding shadow to this area here. And you can see now that I've made the tree trunks give some shadow there. Now over here, let's just shadow from other things in the background, other trees that are coming in. And so they might bring a little bit of shadow into this area. And that'll probably do. This can be from other trees coming in that so we're not seeing all of. And then we get some shadowed areas on there and some not shadowed areas, and I can actually put some little bit of sand in there for another bit of a delineation of the trunk there. Okay, so put those vaguely back where they were. So it's coming along quite well there. I've only got a little bit to finish up, and that will be some more strengthening up down here where I want to put in some deeper colours, and I'm going to start using some blues. Some of them here. I might use a few of them up in here as well, just to add in little bits of. Oh, that one's a really hard one. Snap that. Just adding in a few, again, points of different colour temperatures and values to make it more interesting. I want to keep this very dark in there, so I'll just take all my dark colours and add bits of them. But I want it to be lively and interesting, and you can see here by adding in some of those darker greeny blues there. I'm adding some lively interest because it's contrasting so well with the oranges and the bright colours there. The yellows and the blues just bounce off each other. So I'm actually using that and taking it through into some of the other areas there and around the tree trunk. I'll put in some little bits coming down there. But I don't want it to be just all that blue colour. A little bit in there though. To symbolise a bit of I want other colours to be in there. I'm taking a brown and warming things up a little bit with. So the shadows need to be warm and cool just like everywhere else. So here I'm putting in some darks for the shadowed area, but they're warmer. Put those in amongst that. And not forgetting that in some patches there will be a bit of light catching them, so we want to build that into it too. So here they come. Some of the tips are going to get a little bit of sunlight. Over here similarly. And I just want a little bit more work in there, and that's gone a bit flat because I put the shadow over the top of the bright stuff. So what I'm trying to do now is to take some of the darker shadowy greens and brown sort of colours and pop those in there. A few of those in there just to indicate different sorts of vegetation. Now that's got a patch of light, so I need to make a patch of light there. I've let that go rather. So let's just add in some of that patch of light there. I've really gone to town with that yellow because it's a very soft one, so I'm just taking a bit of that off, and we'll add in over this side, so those colours as well, and I'm going to add them in on this side. And here there's some shadow coming up into it, but not catching it all, so there might be some shadowed areas inside that little patch of brightness, and I'll just pop some of those in there. And I can also have these other warmer sort of browns in amongst that to suggest some other sorts of vegetation amongst the shadows. So let's put those in. And I really think I'm going to leave it pretty much at that, except I need to clean that area up a bit there. I've got dirty fingers from it, and it just is putting in a little bit more. I might put a little bit of purple in there too, amongst the grasses. Okay, and I'm happy with that. So once you're happy with it, work out where you're going to sign it. I don't know whether I've talked about this with you before, but when you're signing it, you want to balance up your painting. So here, for me, it's kind of running out the end here a little bit, and I'm thinking I can either sign here to catch your attention and stop it running so far out of the eye running right out of the painting, or I can do another thing, which might be to actually bring that path a little bit around that way as well, so it's not just running over that way, and that might be a help. Having done that, I might need to bring out some of the paintings there, some of the vegetation there, and decide what colour you're going to sign with. And I quite like the idea here of signing with one of the warmer yellowy kind of colours, but not really bright, either here or here, and I think I'm going to sign there. And so I can do that with one of these, but they're not really sharp enough, so I tend to often use a Conte pastel like so, and when I do use them I tend to break them in half. So I think I'm going to try this one, and I'm just going to sign like so. And there we are. I think that shows up well against the shadows. It stops the eye going out of the painting, and it fills that little area there with a bit more detail. So there we go. Using just the Sennelier box and a few little pastels of Conte sticks and a couple of charcoal pencils, a white and a black, and these two original reference photos, and you can see it doesn't really bear a lot of resemblance to the reference photos in terms of colour. I've added my own twist on the colour there, but I think we've got a vibrant sunny beach path. So